It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Wednesday, June 19th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Health is Happiness, the scripts, evangelism scripts, word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? And yes, it is a wonderful Wednesday. Hope you guys have enjoyed your week thus far. We're already at the middle of the week. Don't forget, tomorrow is Q&A Thursday, so get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, leave a like and comment to build our community. Just very happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. Now, this week's Sunday message title is, You Are a Living Person Only If You're United with a Living Person. It is God's history that splits. Okay, so it is Wednesday, guys, and we're trying something new. Instead of the Bible history, we got all the way up to almost the end of the book of Exodus, but we're doing evangelism scripts, and this is a real situation where someone asked me a question about a Gentile newcomer that they met and just broke up with their boyfriend and is, what was the other thing? And just broke up with their boyfriend. Oh, and they signed up for self-development classes. Okay, so Gentile, non-religious, just broke up with their boyfriend. So we have a couple of hints here. And what type of lecture or what type of script did we come up for that? And we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, that's going to be in the second segment. So I hope you guys had a wonderful week. Always happy and thankful for everyone joining us. Lot of things to think about and many things we need to do every single day. And I hope you guys are really opening your hearts to what the Holy Spirit wants to do each and every day. For me, for some reason, you know what the weird thing is? You know the Monday podcast? I barely remember the Monday podcast even after I recorded it. And it made me even want to re-record the Monday podcast. And I was like, should I re-record it? But then it might be not as natural. But for me, I was like, man, what was the Monday podcast about? Hope, tell me what you guys thought about the Monday podcast. I don't know. Like, it's just something I didn't really remember. Maybe I didn't have a very good feeling about it. I don't know what it is. It's just I'm trying to figure out, what did I do on that day, right? Also, remember, today is the Rebel Pastor. The live stream will be up at 9 a.m. Taiwan time, 10 a.m. Korea. So that's in Asia, Wednesday mornings. But for those of you guys over there in the U.S., by the time you hear this podcast, it is already passed because it'll be Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be a great video. This is actually a video. The content came from my discussion with SS. With Second Gen SS, they were asking about God giving Adam and Eve animal skins and what does it actually mean. So I'm going to be getting to that one for the Rebel Pastor podcast. I hope you guys will enjoy that too. What's very interesting for me is the poll that is up on my Rebel Pastor podcast, which is about women in ministry. Okay. And of course, there are people that believe that women should not be in ministry at all because of what the scriptures say. There are those that believe that women can be in ministry, but not head leaders. But it made me think really deeply about why we in this history are so open to having women in ministry, right? And I think obviously it's because we're in the new history and we know that it's something that is definitely not frowned upon, but something that is almost encouraged. And when you look at Providence too, most of the leaders are women. Right? So I think one of the most dangerous things that we can do, and we should realize, is that we shouldn't be so flippant about, or like flippant meaning just like, oh, it's so obvious that women are allowed in ministry. I don't think it's good for us to think that it's just obvious that women are allowed in ministry. And I think we take it for granted what we have in this history. And our perspective from Providence is much different from the former faith. And I would say it's not that obvious that women should be in ministry from the scriptures. And in a lot of cases, we can say that more of the scriptures point to women not being in ministry than women being in ministry. If you look at scriptures itself, right? And I don't think it should be as easy as, oh, that's just culture, And I think that's something that we do need to prove in our points. So I don't even know where you can actually find verses that state or make it seem like women in ministry should be okay. You know what I mean? So that's something I think is very interesting. And I was thinking about this really deeply because I will be posting something like that in a future Rebel Pastor podcast about women in ministry. But I need to, one thing I noticed about myself is sometimes I need to stop thinking like a Providence person, meaning I need to understand from the perspective of someone in the former faith and why they believe that way. And understanding to myself is it's so obvious, not because it was explained to me, it's because we know the man of mission, and when he sets it up or he puts a female in as a leadership position, we don't question it. We're like, oh, okay, it seems like it's normal, right? So it's like we don't really have a full biblical and scriptural answer. And that's why I wanted to think about this much more deeply before I actually got into that podcast. So that is one I will record for the future. Oh, you know what? I completely forgot about Father's Day. I didn't even call my dad. Like I was more making sure that I didn't forget Mother's Day, then my dad's birthday, and then my Mother's Day, 2 weeks later is my dad's birthday, 1 week later is my brother's birthday, and I got all of them down. But I ended up forgetting about Father's Day, even when after service, like at the church that I was attending, the English church in Malaysia, we had like homemade brownies, just celebrating Father's Day. And I never thought about my dad. I was just like exhausted, like from brother's birthday, dad's birthday, Mother's Day, all these other different types of things. But yeah, I'm gonna make sure I call before the day ends. Yeah, and for me, Father's Day is quite interesting. Because we obviously look also at God as the Father, because He's the creator. And of course, God is the Father creator. And then we have our earthly father. But we also have spiritual fathers. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean a male figure, but someone who plays that role of a father figure, someone who's more structured and more disciplinary. And I think especially in Providence, because we do have more female leaders, a lot of times female leaders do take on like a father figure role of the church too. So, it's very interesting to see, like whenever I say to some head leaders, like, oh, you're totally a father figure, they're like offended, like, oh, I'm not a man. I'm like, well, you're not a man, but you kind of play the role as the head leader, disciplinary, and you're structuring the church and you're making sure everyone's on task. It's not the emotional part. It's more of the, disciplinary and structural part there too. So there are, some people that leaders out there may not be male, but they are people that are definitely playing a father figure role. So make sure you say a big, what do you call it? A big happy Father's Day to those people too, right? No matter how much you may not like your dads, whether it's physical or spiritual, whatever it is, it's a time where we just give thanks, because without them, it is impossible for us to be here too. Okay? It's impossible. Like even spiritually, without God working through that person, how could we be here? So that is something that I thought was, something that we should think about also. Now, this on Monday morning, I did pick up an American member, second gen, and he came alone, like his first time he's traveling alone, like at such a far distance too. And I've known him since he was a baby. I've known his mother even before she was married. Like I was there for the blessing in 1999, not as a participant, but I was Sunseam security guard, right? And now he's all grown up. He's like a real human being, right? He's grown up. He's not a child. I picked him up at the airport. And, he was riding on a plane for like 20 hours. And when I met him, he had a lot of facial hair. And I was like, whoa. And he's taller than me. And it was quite shocking to see him so grown up. And from it was so different, because I'm used to him being like, when I was a head leader, I was his head leader in New York. And even when I was his head leader, he was in high school at that time. He showed me pictures of him and I, when he was like 3 or 4. It was really amazing to see those pictures he was showing me too. But it was amazing, because From the moment, we hugged and said, hey, I think from 6:30 in the morning to 11, we were just talking in the car, at the cafe, and it was really, really refreshing and amazing. Number one is because I've known him as such a young, from such a young child. But just to hear him open up about his life and what's been on his mind, I thought was amazing. Like very insightful. He's talking to me from a very second gen perspective. And there's one thing that I think that's all second gens have in common. And personally, myself, I am a second gen too. I am former faith second gen, but we go through something very, very similar. And he was even telling me, like, even this year, at one point, he stopped coming to church. Like, he had to tell his mom, I'm not coming to church anymore, kind of thing. And, but just several things, he's talked about all the different things he went over the last couple of months that, a couple of things that he realized. He said that when he left church, the one thing he always remembered about church was that he was really happy when he was there. But he didn't want to let the atmosphere or just that feeling become the reason why he's going to church. He wanted to go to church for the right reasons, right? Not for the atmosphere, not for the people, but it had to be about God. And he told me this, like he was telling me stories, like his first realization is that God, he really believes in God. Like he realized, he had some prayer, he didn't tell me, but he said he was praying in tears. And he realized that God is real. So there's the first step. I was like, wow. And then now, like, he's just learning on his own because he really wants to. He has that desire. It's kind of like in the Sunday message. You need the desire to want to learn. And since he was talking especially about the second gen, and he has his own choice. He doesn't want to be influenced by anyone else, not his mother or his brothers, but he wants to do it because it's his own reasoning. And for me, just listening to this story for 4 hours, it was inspiring, like really inspiring to hear like the comeback of a second gen. And, like I said, he hit the first stage of believing in God. He knows God is true, absolutely. And now he's just like, I want to learn more about Providence. I want to learn more about Sunstein. And the only thing he's scared of is the only thing he said he's kind of nervous of, he just doesn't want to get back into, I'm doing it for this person, or I'm doing it because of everyone else's expectations. So he's very, very self-aware, and I thought that was really impressive. And when we were talking, he was even talking about, he said he was even thinking more deeply about how to raise second gen properly. Right, because he sees himself as a case that he's like, yeah, how could you raise them more? How can you raise them more strongly, right? And like I said, when I heard his story, very, very similar to mine, as a second gen in the former faith. Like I've told you guys before, I was so into church, wanted to be a pastor at 14. I left the church at 15, came back at 19, and then came to Providence. And I had the same feeling. I had the exact same feeling as him is when I left church. And I started, wanting to be popular and being someone that girls liked and stuff like this too. The one thing I remembered about church was it was fun and I was happy there. I was really happy and I enjoyed it so much. I couldn't even tell you why, but I just really loved, I really felt that I was happy. And it wasn't even because I consciously had that relationship with God. I think it was just God's presence. And being at such a young age, that was enough for me. And just hearing his story just made me realize, yeah, we've faced these moments. I think second gens have faced moments of meaninglessness and emptiness because we go out into the world thinking that there's something that we're missing. Like, if I feel so restricted in Providence, I want to go out and try something else. And when you actually try it, you realize it's not that great. And even for me, it eventually brought me back to God. And I came to Providence at that time. So me and him were really able to, we both shared our stories. We're really able to connect on that. And, he asked me to share my story, how I came to Providence. He asked me to share my story about Sunsteam, and I shared a couple stories about Sunsteam with him too. And I told him it was a very, very similar thing is I wanted to come to God because it was my decision. It was something that I really wanted. And that was something that was so relatable to him and resonated with him too. So me seeing him go through an entire arc, right? The arc of, being in this history, loving church, have all his older brothers and sisters there, like, sisters in Christ in Providence. And then, then finally reaching that point where he feels like I'm too restricted. I want to try things on my own. And he doesn't want to go there just following his parents kind of thing. And then all of a sudden realizing that it's not really working out. And he's like, yeah, I want to do this because I want to do this. It was kind of like a coming of age, and he did it, at the age of 21, which I think is amazing. And he realized about the world. He realized how crappy the world is and how much better it is to be with God. And even after that 4.5 hours, there's always questions that keep coming up. I love it. Like, I just love to see someone this hungry, someone this young, be this hungry, meaning he was asking me questions like, oh, why is the history going through the youngest child? Because he's the eldest in the family. And he asked me like, well, why would God choose the youngest? Why not the oldest kind of thing, right? And we went over the spiritual history of of Cain and Abel, the condition that was set, and he understood it better. But ultimately, for all of us in Providence, it's not so much about who's older and who's younger. In Providence, it's like a meritocracy is who just loves God more. That's who's chosen, is the one that loves God, right? Out of that love, what do they do for God? And that's the thing that matters the most. And he was really inspired, and I could just hear it. I could see it in his face. I could hear it in his voice when I said, look at you. You fulfilled the responsibility of the firstborn. He's like, and he's like, oh. I was like, think about it. You and your brothers are going through the same arc. But since you're the oldest, you go through it first. You experience it first, and you've come full circle, and now you've realized God again, right? You've come back, so you've done it first, right? And that's what's supposed to happen. The firstborn goes through everything first, and you've done everything right, and that's why you're back. And the look on his face is like, oh, yeah, that's so true, right? So I thought that was kind of cool that he did go through that, and that he's gaining and learning, and continually praying for him. He's doing just such an awesome job, and I had a really good time. And more people will be coming tomorrow. There's more people coming tomorrow. There's more people coming today, and everyone should be here by today. So that should be quite fun too. So I can't wait to I can't wait to see everyone. Right, I can't wait to see everyone come back. And I'm hoping that, not come back, but seeing them in a long time, and hopefully show them the wonders and the amazingness of Malaysia, right? Not just Providence, but just Malaysia in general. And I'm going to tell you this, this second gen, he's from New York, which is one of the most expensive cities in the world. He's just in sticker shock, in a good way. He's like, what? Like, put it this way. We went to Starbucks in the morning because it opened at 7:30, and I picked him up at 6:30. And we ordered two coffees, like vanilla latte, and then I ordered a latte. They're both grandes. Plus, we had I had some croissant sandwich. He had some ragu pie, and it came to $9 or $8, something really cheap. He's like, I've never seen this before, because in New York, $8 is like the price of one venti coffee, and you basically can't buy anything else. So he was already in sticker shock, right? Because it's so expensive in America, but here it's so much cheaper. Like, I can't wait kind of to take him to McDonald's, just because McDonald's in New York is like $15 for like a Big Mac meal, where here the Big Mac meal is like $3. So it's a third of the price what it is in not even a fourth of the price. So it's quite shocking when you see the prices and how much these things are. And I hope it's something for me, I just hope they enjoy their time, have a great time, and that they will come back again. And even my friends are going, I wonder if they'll love Malaysia as much as I do. And I'm like, I think they will. I just think they will, because I come with a Western mindset. And I'll say just some of the huge advantages of Malaysia, not only is just the price for people coming from foreign countries, but it's the fact that almost everyone speaks English. For me, that's huge. It's huge that everyone almost speaks English. I think that's great, right? And for me, I'm just like, yeah, that's just the reality of things. And it makes it so much easier for people who are coming from foreign countries to come here also. I can rave on and on. But the one thing that I thought that was the coolest is when the second gen is like, I was telling him that on Friday he's going to be going to like doing a tour, all of Sunseam Stories and stuff. And he's like, that's the day he's waiting for the most. And I was like, poof, like this guy's got it. Like this guy's really on the ball. And he's really honest too. Like, I know I'm raving about this guy, but I just never have met that many Western second gens that have gone through the entire arc, right? And he's a guy, which makes him, I'm going to say this in a very cautious way, makes him more valuable because why? There are not a lot of guys out there, right, girls, right? There's not a lot of guys out there in Providence, so that's why I'm saying it makes him that much more valuable. So I'm not saying he's more valuable because he's a guy. It's because he's rare, right? So I hope that all the people that come and all the people that will be coming today will have an amazing and awesome time. Don't forget, guys, make sure to get onto the Rebel Pastor YouTube channel and make sure that you join us for the live chat too at 10 a.m. All right. So yeah, that's I'm having a good time. It's gonna just be 1 week with these with my friends over here, and they will be leaving on Monday. They'll be leaving on Monday, so Monday will be the last day, and I'm gonna be obviously having a fun time with that too. Okay. Either way, what does this mean? It means that. Oh yeah. Today, we have the evangelism scripts. I hope you guys are going to enjoy this with a real life situation and making a real script for someone. I hope that you guys will enjoy this also. Gentile, just broke up in a relationship and looking for self-development. Okay, so that's going to be the next second segment for today's podcast. Look forward to this, and I'm hoping this will be able to bring more people to wanting to evangelize a lot more too. And I'd love to hear the newcomers that you're meeting, and I can work on a script for the next one too. I know someone already put a script up in the comment section, so I'm going to go over that one for next week. Okay? So before we get into the evangelism scripts, let's get into the first music break of the day.
2023. We've all come a long way. Many different stories, but we're all on the same journey. Many, many ups and downs, but we're all still around. Many, many, many lessons, but each one came with a blessing. Let's not forget for where we come from when we make this confession. Some people just want to watch the world burn. As for you and I, let's set ourselves on fire, shine a light so bright that will make the people say, burning life, burning life. Look at the flames in my eyes, watch it burn, but don't stare too long, you might lose your sight. Some people gunning for our downfall, but they'll never see our demise. Burning life, burning life. Who's the one? I'm the one, he's the one. Are you the one? No, we're the ones who keep the fire going till the day we die, till they see the light, make it bright, till we hear the people say, born sinner, never could be ill. I know I'm back from the dead, yeah, the Lord is my healer. I took the red pill, that's why I call him teacher. When you learn about the spirit, oh, there ain't nothing real. The one you learn from determines your entire destiny. Learn from the one who taught about eternity. Cloud craving, paper chasing, the joy is only temporary. I don't wanna do the same thing, so I hard to count the vanity. I keep my eyes on the prize. I'll never sell my soul to the devil in disguise. With both hands on each side, I'm holding on to dear life. I keep my guard up, never back down. When it goes down, I call on the Christ. Spiritual battle, answer the call. It's Call of Duty, modern warfare, put the armor of God. They're fighting Lucy with a rock. I got atomic bombs, love the Lord your God, and all your brothers want your demons fall. Don't be deceived, know who the ops is. Keep the unity and peace, go far way across this. Came to preach the word of God like I'm born in Tarsus. Here to testify the things I've seen on road to Damascus. He's a real deal, the real thing, be glad you heard the King's speech. Blessed are those who reach the end and get to hear the Lord speak. GODs, POC, we fulfilled everything. Burning life, kerosene, burning life, legacy.
You will never see me stop in the future. The life that fulfills God's will continue. Everyone thinks I'm unfortunate because I go through suffering. But inside of me, it's different. Because I walk the path of eternal life.
Burning life, Look at the flames in my eyes, watch it burn, but don't stare too long, you might lose your sight. Some people gunning for our downfall, but they'll never see our demise. Burning life, who's the one? I'm the one, he's the one. Are you the one? No, we're the ones who keep the fire going till the day we die, till they see the light, make it bright, till we hear the people say,
like Mary poured out her perfume on Jesus' feet, I must pour out my heart, mind, and love on the one who saved me.
Okay, so let's get into today's second segment. And of course, this is one I think a lot of people are looking forward to, is how to introduce the word to people. And like I told you from last week, I think one of the things I really want to do is actually record my live interactions with people. Of course, I'm not going to do it video. I'm going to do it only audio, but I think it's going to be I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be really fun to go over that, and you guys can see me in in real time, right? In real action, like, oh, this is what he's talking about. Let's see what this person reacts to, if this person really likes the word or not, this type of thing, right? So I'm looking forward to that. I hope you guys will look forward to it too. Okay, so let's get into today's evangelism script. Okay, so what is the situation? We're talking about a Gentile. Okay, Gentile, someone who just broke up with their boyfriend. So they're hurting from that, or else they wouldn't have brought that up. And then they signed up for self-development. So we have three things: Gentile, broke up with their boyfriend, and they signed up for self-development. Okay, so I would say that there's a couple things that we have to take into consideration. Number one is, if they're Gentile, it may not be the right thing right away to just start like opening up Bible scriptures like, oh, the Bible says this and the Bible says that. Why? Because they don't respect the authority of the Bible. So it doesn't really make sense to bring the Bible up to people who don't respect the authority of the Bible, right? I think that's something that we look at and say, yeah, that's so true, that we shouldn't be pushing towards that, right? Because that means we're kind of forcing the Bible onto them. We don't want that, right? So in the first one or two lectures, I probably won't be doing that, talking about Bible scriptures. Okay, so there's one, because they're a Gentile. And also because they're a Gentile, we want to go into themes that will lead into the spiritual, but starts with something that is a little bit more physical or mental that's closer to them, which one big piece of information is they just broke up with their boyfriend, right? So we know that this is a big deal, because if it wasn't a big deal, why would you bring that up to someone who's doing a survey with you, right? So we know that's a big deal. So relationship problem. And then in the end, they want to develop themselves better. This is a first-year student, okay? So how would I get into what type of lecture would be good for this? And of course, I would say that because this person is like hurting from a relationship problem, I would focus on relationships. And relationships is perfect for people in Providence and perfect for us, because Providence is all about relationships, right? Our relationship with God, our relationships with each other and stuff. But because we cannot focus too much on the Bible, because she is a Gentile, we have to lead this person into that direction and not taking them right away. So I would say that I told this person, well, the lecture that I did last week, the happiness lecture, I would start with that. Happiness, meaning, and purpose. Like I would start with those, like that lecture that I did for you last week. Right? And when you start with this, then it kind of opens people's hearts up to, oh, this is so true. It starts with myself. I got to think about something more deeply, right? And then the second lesson is when I go into more about relationships and self-development. So how would I start it? I would start it off with some type of intro, like when I think about relationships, I would say, as we experience more and more in life, the more we realize the importance of relationships. Whether it's family, friendships, schoolmates, colleagues, bosses, lovers, relationships are one of the most core and key part of our life. And if you really think about it deeply, it's almost all about relationships. We realize how important relationships are, even more important than the actual, like when we go to school or work, the relationships at work actually play an even more important part, because Poor relationships with your colleagues makes work difficult. Poor relationship with your boss makes work unbearable. Bad relationships with family, oh, you get so frustrated and angry. You don't want to go to family gatherings. And it's all because of a bad relationship. Bad relationship with friends makes school unbearable. But the one that's the most important one probably is going to be your relationship with your lover. And this person that we're talking about just broke up with their boyfriend. And when you break up with a lover, it makes everything bad. When you break up with your boyfriend, and since we're talking to this person, it affects your school, your concentration, your focus, your work, your family. You get mad at other people. You become more like irritable, all because of one relationship. And we see that, wow, relationships play such a huge role in our life. And if we want to get down to the core of a healthy relationship, what is the core? What is the most important relationship? And of course, if this was not a Gentile, we would be talking about the relationship with us and God. But because this person is a Gentile, to a Gentile, what is the most important relationship? It's the relationship with themselves, right? What is your relationship like with yourself? Do you have a healthy relationship with yourself? Now, some people might think to themselves, what does that mean? And for myself, I would take this from a Bible verse in Romans, right? I think it's Romans chapter 9. I think it's Romans chapter 9, verses 15 to 17, right? And like, this is a crazy verse. Romans chapter, why am I searching? Romans chapter 9. Sorry guys, I haven't used this verse in a long time. Romans chapter 9, I believe it's 15 to 17, I believe. And it says, is this the right one? But okay, so maybe I'm in the wrong spot. But I don't think I am. Maybe I'm in the wrong spot. Okay. So it's in Romans chapter 7. There you go. Romans chapter 7, 9, 15 to 17. It's Romans chapter 7, 15 to 17. It says, I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. And if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good, as it is no longer I myself who do it, but it is sin living in me. Right? So it's kind of confusing as I don't do what I want to do. And of course, I'm not using this Bible verse for this newcomer, right? But it's the I versus the I. It's me versus me. I don't do what I want. Like if this is for a Christian, I would definitely use the verse, but we can't. So I'll talk about the struggle we have with ourselves. How many times do we know what is the right thing to do, but we don't do it? Even though we absolutely 100% know in our hearts, we still do the things that are wrong. We make big mistakes, even though we know it's a mistake. We do it anyways. Like, we go out with our friends instead of studying for a test. We go watch Netflix instead of, getting rest for the big day tomorrow for a test or for work or whatever it is. We just hang out and do nothing instead, but we know it's not the right thing to do, right? When we know we shouldn't say something to someone because you know you're going to hurt them, but you just say it and you hurt them. How many times have you faced consequences that you never should have gone through because you know you shouldn't have done it in the first place? It's like the things you wish you could have done differently. And I would bring this up not as body and spirit, but I would bring it up and say, this is the battle between your inner and outer self. The outer self is selfish. The outer self just wants what is good for right now, while the inner self understands the future. The inner self, like it's the spirit obviously, is the one that understands that if you just try to satisfy your outer self right now, you're just going to be happy now, but you're going to be miserable later. And we keep losing this battle constantly. So the question is, how do we resolve this? Right? We resolve this. We have to resolve this issue between the inner and outer self. So I would say it's like a couple fighting with each other, right? And imagine you are, you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and even though you know you're right at times, but you always compromise and you always allow the boyfriend or girlfriend to do what they want. And this one side is always willing, one side is always giving in. But is that right? And the answer is no, because in a real relationship, it's give and take. But we don't have that with the inner and outer self, right? So now let's get into the answer. The answer we get into is this. This is how I get into the answer. First, let me tell you a story first, okay? And I'll tell them this is how. Oh, no. Let's not go into the story. Let me just go in the answer first, okay? Sorry about that. I'm going off the top of my head. So I'll ask this person, how old are you? And they'll say, I'm 21. And I'll be, all right. And in these last 21 years, how have you maintained your body, right? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, do you shower at least every other day? They're like, yeah. Do you brush your teeth every day? Yeah. Twice, 3 times a day. Do you clean your clothes? Yes. Do you sleep? Yes. Do you study? Yes. Do you exercise? They're like, yeah. I was like, and this is why you're pretty, or this is why you're handsome, because you maintain and take care of yourself, and that's why your body is strong. Your outer self is strong. It's you maintained yourself well over the last 21 years. And this is when I get into the big question. In the last 21 years, what have you done for your inner self? And the simple answer is they have no idea what to do for their inner self. They don't. And because they don't know exactly what to do, they haven't done anything. So what's going to happen? It's like your outer self is 21 years old, but your inner self that you have not maintained or managed is like 4 or 5 years old. So if the outer self is 21 and the inner self is 5 years old, if you start a fight, who wins almost every time? And the answer is, it's always the outer self. And this is why the outer self is always winning. So here's the question. Well, how do I balance out between my inner and outer self? And there is this Cherokee story about 2 wolves. I'm sure many of you guys know, right? And there's a grandfather talking to his grandson. And he says, the grandfather says, I have a fight going on in me. It's taking place between two wolves. One is evil, angry, envious, sorrowful, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, all these bad things. And the other wolf embodies positive emotions: joy, peace, love, hope, humility, kindness, empathy, all these good things. Both wolves are fighting to the death. And the same fight is going on inside of you and every other person too. And the grandson starts to think about it and reflects on it, and finally looks up at his grandfather and asks, which wolf is going to win? And the grandfather simply replies, the one you feed. And the problem is we're taking care of the outer self, but we do not take care of the inner self, the spirit, right? The true relationship between the body, the outer being and the inner being is not one has to win over the other. Why? In this physical realm, can you live without eating? No, you gotta eat. You gotta exercise. You gotta do these things for you gotta sleep, right? There's a lot of things you still need to do. So it's not like you can just live for the inner being and only the inner being. You're living in this, you gotta make money. How do you live without money? Which means that you have to think about it as a true relationship, a real marriage. And that marriage must be balanced, give and take, which means both of them have to be equal. The problem is not that you have to kill your body. No, you have to balance. Because in a true relationship, true relationship, if you can understand this true relationship between your inner self and outer self, in a true relationship, are the two people always trying to figure out what they want to do? And the answer is no, because if it's only about what you want to do, you'll always fight. But when you really, really love someone else, what do you ask? What do you want to do? And they say, what do you want to do? And this is when there's balance in the relationship. And the thing is, if you can't understand that balance between your inner and outer self, you will not be able to recognize when you have an imbalance in the relationships around you. You need to be healthy with the relationship with yourself before having relationships, like true lover relationships with others. So how do we do it? Well, the outer self feeds off what? Energy, food, things that brings pleasure to the body. But when you think of the inner self does not think about those things, right? The food does, physical food does nothing for the inner body, the inner self. But what does? Well, think about your mind. Your mind is between your inner and outer self, right? So it's kind of like, it's like your mind, right? It's what you think. How do you feed your mind? Very easy. How many times have you heard the saying, food for thought? Which means that if someone gives you an idea, it's something that you can take and you can think and digest about and, have discussions with, and that's food for your mind, right? That's why you go to school. But food for your inner self, it's figuring out what's right and what is wrong. It's moral authority. It's ethics, right? It's about what is true. It's about knowing yourself, why you're doing things. And it's the same topic as figuring out what we talked about last time is you have to look beyond your life here. And this is why people are learning spiritual things, right? Spiritual things talk about things outside of this life, right? That's why there's always something about heaven or hell, a good place or a bad place after you die. And it only talks about what is the right thing to do now so you can get to that point, right? So you see here is I'm now starting to bring up those spiritual things that are very important so that people will be able to say, oh, that's so true. Well, I need to feed my inner self, right? I'm not using spiritual words. I'm not saying stuff like spirit and body, I'm not using those spiritual words that people are going to say, oh, this is definitely a religious thing, right? But I'm using words like inner self, outer self, these types of things. And, where am I getting this from? This also from Romans chapter 7:22, right? For in my inner being, I delight in God's law. So even in Romans, Paul was using terms like inner self. And that's why I'll use that terminology. And when later on, if this person says, I want to study something spiritual, and you could say, and you could be like, well, there's a lot of places you can go to, a lot of places you can learn from. For myself, if you want to learn from me, I am someone who learns from the Bible and I'm Christian, but that's purely up to you because, everyone has different things that they want to learn. But, I'll leave that option to you, right? So that is the way that, that's the lecture that I shared with a member who is asking about this type of situation. So I hope it's something that you guys will enjoy also. And if you guys have any more situations, what you're dealing with, like, how do I deal with the Gentile in this situation, right? Just kind of like look at what I'm doing. I'm looking at Gentile. They talked about breaking up with their boyfriend. So I'm going to talk about relationships. And then I'm talking about self-development, right? So I'm getting the hints from what they're talking to me about. And when you get really good, you're just going to say these things on the spot. I'm dead serious. You'll be able to just say any of these things on the spot, right? So yeah, if you have any other different evangelism scripts that you want to talk about, let me know. And I'll definitely be able to go over those too. Okay? So yeah, that's today's evangelism script. Hope it helps you guys out a lot. And what do we have next? Oh, health is happiness, right? Health is happiness is next. And today we're going to go over episode about why am I unfocused and unmotivated? And it's about dopamine depletion. This is by Julius, right? So I hope you guys will enjoy this one too. But before we get into that, let's get into the last music break of the day.
I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. We stay looking for someone to hold when the right one's standing at your door. Open up your heart and say, I believe in what you say, and I promise you will gain much more. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. 10 years of struggle, 10 years of pain, but I'll finally get to see you no more. Just calling your name. Ones who wonder who, just open up your eyes. He's waiting for you too. He's not a man in disguise. And the hardest cross to bear, but your heart's not what I wear. To think this effort and this love could overcome the dirty stairs. And it's all because of you. Yeah, it's all because of you. Said it's all because of you. Yeah, I need you. For someone to hold when the right one's standing at your door. Open up your heart and say, I believe in what you say, and I promise you will gain much more. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one.
Okay, so let's get into our final segment on this wonderful Wednesday podcast. Hope you guys have been enjoying it thus far. What was I? Oh yeah, health is happiness. And we're going to talk about why am I unmotivated and unfocused. I'm so unmotivated and unfocused that I can't even say unmotivated and unfocused without stuttering. But this is from Julius, and this was actually from episode 47, so it's probably one of the more recent ones. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please welcome all the way over from Australia. This is Julius Mayuma with Health is Happiness.
Hello everyone, Julius here and welcome to Health is Happiness. It's been a while, but I'm back again with a special episode. And the idea for this episode actually came to me quite suddenly after a very interesting experience I had about a month ago. So, what are we going to be talking about today? Today's topic is going to be dopamine depletion. Now, the reason why I decided to talk about this topic is because about a month ago, I was feeling really unfocused and unmotivated to do pretty much the things that I really, really wanted to do, which was really frustrating. So actually at that time, I was studying to prepare myself to be ready to apply for this particular job. And there were some skills that I needed to really prepare in order to do well in the interview and get the job. But for some strange reason, I had zero desire to do it, even though previously before, I really, really wanted this job. And I kind of still did. But I couldn't figure out why I couldn't focus to sit down to study what I actually really enjoyed, which was programming. And at that time, I was kind of anxious as well and bored at the same time, and I couldn't really figure out why. Also, I was playing soccer about once a week, which is my favorite sport. When I was younger, I used to play for 3 hours just by myself. That's how much I loved soccer. But when the game came up, I actually really didn't feel bothered at all to even want to play. And I was really confused. I was like, this is like my favorite sport. What's going on? On top of that, all the music on my playlist was kind of really boring. And I just kept scrolling past song after song on my Spotify playlist while I was at the gym. And I was even not feeling like going to the gym either. So I was really confused and trying to figure out what was going on with myself. And then I began to notice that every time I I was listening to a podcast or something, some YouTube in the background, when I took my headphones off and I was just in silence. For some reason, I kind of began to feel anxious, and it was weird. Like I kind of felt the need to plug myself back in. Like I just needed to put the headphones on and listen to something. I couldn't just sit down in silence, and it was kind of weird. And so I was thinking, maybe I'm consuming too much media. And after that, then I decided, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to block all media. And I remember, actually, I don't use a lot of social media like Instagram, so I thought I was kind of fine. But I decided instead to block all media. That means no podcasts, no Spotify, no Instagram, no YouTube, which is the only thing I consumed mostly, and no TikTok and various things like that. And pretty much the only thing that I would use the internet for was for work. And all my devices, my phone, my laptop, I couldn't really access these social media platforms or media, And the only thing that I used was SoundCloud, to be honest, at that time. And so I did this experiment, and it was really quite interesting. Early on, I kind of felt really a little bit anxious, but because when you stop using something, and then you kind of feel like you need to use it, and it was kind of okay for the first couple of days, but then something really interesting happened in day 5. Now, I usually couldn't dream that much, but for some reason on day 5 onwards, from day 5 onwards to day 6, day 7, I had the most extremely lucid dreams. They were so real and so vivid, and I was thinking, hang on, what's going on? I literally had more vivid dreams in the last 3 days than I did in the past 2 months. From day 8, I started getting really emotional for some reason, and I had these strange headaches when I woke up. I was really going through some really intense, not really intense, but kind of weird withdrawal symptoms. Every now and then I kind of get sad for no reason, and my mind kind of felt a little bit tight. Once day 14 came around, things started to become a little bit better, and I started to notice something quite interesting. This same music that I listened to a couple of weeks ago, for some reason, felt really, really good once I listened to it again. And I was listening to this particular song, and I was listening to it again and again and again on replay. And just 2 weeks before, I couldn't even stand 10 seconds of this song. And it was quite weird. Music was really, really enjoyable again. And before then, previously, I kind of had feeling I was just scrolling through my playlist song after song. There was nothing really satisfying, nothing really motivating me when I was in the gym. On top of that, going to the gym in and of itself began to be much, much easier. Like before, I would still go, but I would kind of begrudgingly do my workout. I didn't really feel like it. I didn't enjoy it for some reason. But then now, I was pumped to go to the gym, even before putting on the headphones and the music, which was kind of interesting. But the best part was that finally, I was able to start focusing on my studies once again. And this was I could now prepare for the job application that I wanted to do a couple months later. And I could easily sit down and read through the book that I needed to read through and get through a whole chapter, which is about 10 pages, much more focused without getting up. Previously, before, I couldn't even read a page without me getting up to try and find some food to eat, or just feeling anxious, like I can't really absorb what I'm reading. But all of a sudden, I could get through 10 pages of really difficult, complex mathematics that I needed to study and learn how to program. And I realized that it was because of the power of cutting off all this media. Now, after this discovery, this was day 21 at this point, and roughly day 21, then I began doing some research about this once again, and I came across some knowledge that I'd actually learned ages ago, but I completely forgot, and it was about dopamine depletion. Now, some of you might know Dr. Huberman, and you might know him from the Huberman podcast, and he runs a science-based health podcast that's extremely thoroughly researched in many areas of health and science, which I thoroughly recommend. And he did one of these podcasts on dopamine, and this really reminded me something that I learned ages ago, but I clearly forgot to my own detriment. And it was the idea behind craving and motivation and its relationship with dopamine. So just to break it down and summarize it, in an experiment, this was an experiment Dr. Huberman was talking about. They actually depleted a rat of dopamine, and they had a rat who had normal dopamine levels, and they found that the rat that didn't have dopamine, they actually still enjoyed doing the activity that they did, which was eating cheese. And from this study, they were able to conclude that actually dopamine was not responsible for pleasure. But what they noticed was when they moved the food just a little bit away, just about an inch away from the rat that had no dopamine, they couldn't be bothered actually getting up to eat the food. So what they were able to realize was that dopamine was rather more responsible for motivation than for pleasure. This is really an important distinction, I think, that needs to be clearly made, because there's a big conception that dopamine is associated with pleasure, but actually it's associated with the pursuit rather than the reward itself. In other words, more dopamine is actually released in pursuit of whatever the reward is than the actual reward itself. So, why does this matter? Well, let me explain. If you've ever been scrolling through social media and you're wondering why am I still doing this? Why am I still scrolling through this even though my eyes are burning and clearly this doesn't feel good at all? Well, it's because of dopamine. You may have found that if you ended up stopping to scroll the social media, then you kind of felt really anxious. And after you do a few seconds of scrolling through social media, it kind of makes you feel sedated. Now, the reason for this is because over time, as you engage in this hyper dopamine inducing activity, it raises the threshold of your brain for the dopamine required to cause you to pursue something that you don't have, while at the same time depleting the amount of dopamine. Now, what's quite insidious, you might say, about this is because of the social media, the junk food, the constant text messages that are coming through, these hyper-stimulating dopamine activities, which are also require low effort, result in you not having the amount of dopamine required to drive you to pursue the other activities that you care about and require more effort. So the problem is pleasure experienced without prior requirement for pursuit is terrible for us. What this means is that those who are able to control their relationship and self-regulate their proximity to excess dopamine stimulating activities will be the ones who are successful at their pursuits, especially in this modern world where we constantly have easy access to hyper-stimulating dopamine activities. What's also quite interesting is that dopamine works in reverse with pain. In other words, pain evokes the release of dopamine after the pain is over. For example, if you take a really cold ice bath or do a really strenuous, painful exercise, that the more friction that you experience, the greater the dopamine reward when that activity is over. And that is where the runner's high comes from. On top of this, your brain develops more receptors, which allows you to respond more easily to dopamine, which makes you much more able to be driven to pursue your future goals. So, what can we do about this? Now, to me, the easiest thing is elimination. Of course, we cannot completely cut ourselves from social media since we need to keep in contact with people. So what I choose to do is cut out all the unnecessary ones that really add no value. That's up to you to decide. But for the ones that I do need to use, I actually I have a screen time management application that only allows me to use certain applications for maximum 15 minutes. And doing this now allows me to control my relationship with these activities to prevent me from being inhibited from pursuing my other goals. So I hope you guys experiment with this for yourselves and see how you feel after even 7 days or 10 days. I'm sure you'll feel the difference. Well, that's it for today's podcast. Thank you all for listening to Health is Happiness, and see you next time.
And thank you so much, Julius, for another wonderful segment of Health is Happiness. Hope you guys enjoyed this. How to get more focused, how to get more motivated. It's about dopamine depletion. All right. So there it is, guys. That is today's Wednesday podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoy your day as best as you can. If there's anything that you do, other topics you want me to talk about, go ahead, leave in the comments below, especially for evangelism scripts if you have a certain situation that you want me to try to make a script for. Okay. So everyone, enjoy your Wednesday service tonight, and we will see you again on Thursday. Remember, it's Q&A Thursday on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know. I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know.